Welcome back to The Chew. I'm Kip Franich. With me today is President of CGE, Austin Bosgraaf, and Vice President for Bargaining Brandi Whiteman. We should note that we reached out to the Strategic Communications and Public Affairs Manager for OSU to see if they wanted to send a representative to also appear live on the show, but they declined. Austin, Brandi, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey,
Thanks for
good to be
having us.
here.
How are you two today?
Oh, doing great.
Pretty good.
Right on. And how have you two been during the strike?
Yeah, the strike has been very energizing. It's been a great deal of work, but it's very exciting, and it keeps me motivated, keep coming back. So.
Yeah, it's draining in bargaining sessions from that perspective, but it's really, really invigorating on the picket line.
So I have to ask about today. You guys showed up to demonstrate at President Murthy's meet and greet in the Memorial Union and caused quite the disruption. How do you think it went?
Yeah, I think it was a great big success. The folks who were organizing the event were all very happy with the outcome. We had upwards of 110 to 120 workers on the ground in the Memorial Union today, and we did indeed cause quite a big disruption, and I think our message was heard.
All right, and obviously the big part of the strike is about minimum salaries. What is the minimum salary for graduate employees at OSU right now?
Right now, our lowest paid workers are paid $1,762 a month before taxes. It's also notable that we aren't contracted for a full year. We're often contracted for 9 months at a time.
So I know the strike started on November 12th, but how long has the mediation been going on?
We had gone into mediation in late July.
Late July, all right. Austin, I remember you saying before the strike that striking was just one of the tools CGE has available to them. What was the tipping point that made CGE decide to strike?
Yeah, so I think thinking in terms of a particular tipping point isn't the right framing. So there are some official formal timelines in the negotiations process, and one of these time marks is when we were able to strike as a union under Oregon law. And it really was the buildup in the negotiation and the organizing process, which was a gradual momentum. And once we reached that stage of being able to strike, we really made the choice together. So at the beginning of negotiations, OSU tried to lock us into a 6-year contract, taking us from negotiating our salary every 2 years to every 6. And so the compounding effect of these really small financial proposals into this long-year contract agitated and mobilized a great deal of our members. And when it finally came down to making the decision, folks spoke unanimously, or nearly unanimously. We had 90% of our members voting to authorize a strike, and 93% of those voting members voted yes. And so this was a gradual movement, and we all took that final step together.
And what would you say to undergrads who may be frustrated over their classes being affected by the strike?
Yeah, I would say that I hope that they are seeing the message that we're putting out in terms of why we believe this is important. So the university is moving great sums of money into non-educational places. They're paying administrators, they're moving things into athletics. And so when graduate students are going on strike asking for better pay, for us, we're talking about demanding that the university funds the people who enact that educational mission and the ones who provide the services, which they're all here to get. Folks want to get an education, they want to take that education out in the world and get good jobs and do big things. And we are the ones who are here to help them in that way. And so if the university continues to let its workers live in insecurity, the ability for us to actually do this with the students is going to, be harmed. And so we see this as a choice. Either we fight right now for better pay for our workers, which hurts students maybe in the short term, but the long-term health of students at this university is going to be benefited by a successful movement.
Right. We, as graduate employees, we love our students, and we believe that they deserve better than than what they're getting right now. And paying graduate employees a living wage is one step towards that.
Right. What impact do you think the strike has had on negotiations?
I think it's had a pretty significant impact, right? So as Austin said, we started negotiations with, a 6-year term of agreement on the table. And then, after the strike started, just last week, we got a proposal from OSU, which reflected a 3-year term of agreement, which CGE has been proposing more recently as a compromise to our status quo, which is 4 years with a partial reopener every 2 years. So that's significant movement that I really do credit all the workers on strike for.
What would a successful resolution look like to you?
A successful resolution would look like OSU coming up to meet CGE where we are right now. We have compromised a lot on our salary proposals, and that's really important when we're talking about the difference between making rent or not and being able to afford to feed yourself or not. So a successful wrap up is going to look like living wages for graduate employees, the 3-year term of agreement, and a return to work agreement that reflects the urgency to get graduate employees back in the classroom and back into their research position so that we can wrap up the term as cordially as possible.
What would you say to those who are concerned rising wages might increase student tuition?
We probably have a couple of answers to this. So the money that tuition is used for is to pay, all of our salaries, graduate employees, instructing faculty, teaching faculty, and administrators. And a vast majority of that budget does go to administrative positions, which are quite few compared to the educational resources like teaching faculty and graduate employees. So the choice to raise tuition is not as correlated to a raise in graduate employee salaries as one might think, or as administrators might have you believe.
Mm-hmm. One thing I might add is that the university recently moved $17.9 million out of the education fund into the athletics fund. Now, the education fund is funded by tuition dollars. So we're talking about a university which is taking vast sums of money out of students' tuition dollars and moving it away from education. And so the university is creating huge gaps in its own budget where the education is supposed to be. And so that $18 million vastly outweighs the ask that we're asking for. Our current salary ask is only a couple $1 million. And so the university is ultimately responsible for the way it spends its money, and maybe just to add on that, the university is determined to increase tuition, and I think probably will, irrespective of our salary ask.
What has been the response from the sort of broader university community, including faculty, students, and staff?
We've had overwhelming support from, I would say other unions first and foremost, and community members. Faculty have been broadly very supportive as well. As we've already saw on this episode this evening, the School of Writing, Literature, and Film faculty sent an open letter to the administration about the conditions that are being created because OSU is stalling in this negotiation process when they could very easily come to me to set an agreement at this point.
Mm-hmm. And we've had multiple faculty from our department, the mathematics department, come to the picket line with coffee and snacks and food. And, we've had offers of like, hey, is there anything I can do for like your Thanksgiving? And SEIU, which is the classified staff union on campus, they came and donated a huge, meal of sandwiches to the line. And so we've had folks from other universities coming out, GTFF, Graduate Workers Union at the University of Oregon. We've even seen the, what is the employees? Faculty union at UO?
Oh, I don't know. UAUO.
UAUO,
Right.
the faculty union. Even they've been out here. So folks are very interested in helping support us, and they want to see us succeed.
And aside from the university communities, how do you think the public perception of the strike has been?
I hope it's pretty good. So you know, as you've noted, right, the university has placed their position as, you know, they're making generous offers to the union, which is not true. And, you know, talking about our salary increases in terms of percentages is a little misleading in a sense because, you know, the percentages are based on numbers that are already quite small. So, like, the public perception can only go so far with such limited information, but I think, you know, press that Austin and I have talked to and other members of our union have talked to, we've, I think, been able to convey our message pretty well in a way that, you know, the public has responded, you know, kindly to.
And what happens if maybe a perception sour a little bit? How will you be able to continue the strike?
Well, I don't really think our strike necessarily depends on the perceptions of folks outside, right? Like our membership is fighting for something that's, you know, really big for all of us: living wages, you know, the ability to negotiate our contract in, you know, a reasonable length of time. I find it hard to believe that perceptions would go so sour, and, you know, I would point a little bit more towards where the university is putting its priorities, right? So as Austin said, we see them divesting in education, and that's, you know, that's bad on them.
Of course. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thank you both for being on the show.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks for
you.
having us.